Okay, hey everybody, it's Laura
and Candy
with It's You Guru, and we are talking with Candace Craw-Goldman today about Worldwide Regression Week 2020, Unleash Your Mind.
How powerful is that? I love it.
Yeah, and I think it lines up perfectly with the idea of quantum regression because that's really what it did for Candy and I.
Yeah, it completely unleashed our minds. So thank you, Candace, for creating such a powerful modality for us to play with.
Yeah, so Candy and I had I'd heard of like Dolores Cannon and QHHT a little bit, but there was something about BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, that just, it's like, I don't know if it's your higher selves or what, that just like laser focuses you on something. And Candy and I were both talking about, or both thinking about doing the training without talking to each other.
Independent of each other. And I don't know if I kept seeing it in my Facebook feed or a Facebook ad or what it was. Like that's how significant it was. I can't even remember. Just all of a sudden, it kept talking to me and calling to me. And finally, a friend of ours mentioned that she was going to do BQH training. And we were like, I've been thinking about that too. So here we are.
Yeah. And I love it because it kind of helped build from, Candy and I've had a lot of experience. We're both Reiki masters. We've done a lot of shamanic training. We both have done tons of yoga teacher training, done third eye training. But this was, it sort of took all of that and was like, and now it's in one place.
It made sense of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Candace, we have such mad respect for this amazing modality that you have created and, for finding you. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for so many of us, both practitioners and our clients.
I'm so happy to be with you two today. I'm grinning so hard, my cheekbones are hurting. I mean, really. All of those things that you said. First off, I never heard that story before, that you both independently were thinking about it. So yay, cool. And second thing I have to say, we have yet to buy a Facebook ad for BQH. I mean, maybe we will someday.
So it wasn't that.
Then how did I see it?
It was like an organic thing,
okay.
like as far as like a purchased ad, we've not done that yet. So, we might at some point, but it was just like shared in a post or whatever. I remember when you two came on, and I had my eyes on you from the very beginning, because you came in kind of sideways. A lot of other people came in. They were my colleagues already, people who trained under Dolores, etc. But you all came kind of in that fresh new group and really did. I'm buzzing. Everything that I hoped and dreamed that people would do with this method, which is really take it beyond the kind of quantum healing that we all had heard about, known about before. And there's lots of quantum healing methods out there, quantum touch. There's lots of, people use the word quantum a lot, but of course, I make no secret that BQH was inspired by, of course, my teacher, Dolores Cannon. And actually, if I can I share this?
Please, yeah.
So this is a very famous book of Dolores Cannon's. Let me get the glare off. So The 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth, probably one of her most significant books of all of them, really. More clients of mine talk about this book than any of the others. And, I sat next to Dolores for many years assisting her, but I didn't often ask her to sign books. I had her sign 2 or 3 for friends, but I really only had her sign 1 for me. And I have to share this with you because it has kind of a funny story, but I also want to read something in here because it was the inspiration of BQH. So the first thing is, everybody, this is my signed book for Dolores Cannon. And what I want you all to see is, first off, she misspells my name, which is fine. It's not, I think it's very funny because, if people do misspell my name, it typically tends to be this one, which is Candace, which kind of fun. But she calls me Candace here, and people, of course, famously misspell Dolores's name. But, she actually even put, to Tom on here. And of course, Tom's my husband, and Tom did a little bit of consulting with her at some point. So she knew both of us. So she signed this book to both of us. And the inspiration for BQH comes from the very first page, the introduction, and the whole paragraph is significant, but there's a single sentence in here that even describes kind of where I got the idea of Beyond, and here it is. She says, what better gratification could a teacher have than to have her students take what they have been taught and not be afraid to go beyond and explore unknown pathways? And that is the absolute sentence that inspired the idea of BQH, because a lot of people ask, well, you know, is it the same as QHHT? And no, it is not in a number of ways. It really does say there are no limits. There are no limits at all. And you two are a prime example of how you've taken this idea of no limits and created some really interesting things, like with the bubble and things we've done together. And I'd love for you to talk more about that. My favorite thing for you to talk about is how we even started with this show, because didn't you had something written down? Would you share that with our listeners?
Well, I'm going to let Laura remember how we started like the show. But one of the things that I want to, again, give you kudos for is, so, you know, you talk about how there really are no limits in Beyond Quantum Healing, but that was so clear in the training. And I just want to say thank you, because a lot of instructors say one thing and they kind of train another, where the student doesn't really feel empowered to kind of push and see how far they can bend things and play. But you made it crystal clear in the training that this, like, you gave us a framework, and where we take it is up to us, and we should make it our own. And so, I mean, personally, I felt super empowered after finishing the training to see, like, okay, like, how far can we take this and what can we do? And let's just start playing. Like, that was the energy that we both had around it, was let's just start playing. And that's what we did at first. We played with our friends and family who don't meditate. They aren't necessarily into alternative healings. They, you know, quantum is more of a scientific term than anything related to healing the body or the energy. And so we just started asking them if they would, you know, give us 90 minutes of their time and let us practice some of this stuff. And they all had amazing experiences, every single one of them. And Laura and I were like, this works.
Most of them woke up out of it and were like, what the F was that?
Yeah. Followed by, that was effing amazing.
I love it. I love it.
Well, we have this mirror in our kitchen, and we write different things about the business up on it. And Candy had written, there are no limits. And then I saw your post about your in-person BQH training that you're doing in Kansas. And it was all about being limitless and not having any limits. And that's why I think Candy and I were so drawn to this modality, because we like to break rules. I like to know what the rules are before I break them, but I'm like, that's still bad. I'm not doing that. So we'd had enough experience through the shamanic work and the Reiki and enough other teachers that were kind of the similar vibration of saying, well, that's just how I do it, but you should find your own way of doing it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, what you are teaching practitioners, and then, I mean, honestly, anyone can take the training. We're kicking around telling our clients that you should take the training because it's so impactful and empowerful. Whether you want to become a practitioner or not, it doesn't matter. Like, you're learning how to communicate with your higher selves. And we had a crazy experience in 2018 where, you know, I turned my power over to someone outside of myself to tell me what my purpose was. And it was a disastrously amazing experience. I'm so glad it happened. But what I found out was that, you know, I have the knowledge inside, and Laura had a similar, realization is she has the power to clear herself. She doesn't need to let someone outside herself clear it. And that's what that's what's happening in BQH all the time, is we're connecting with our higher selves and getting this amazing intel that is so obvious and so simple and so compassionate and full of love that sometimes we come out of sessions, because we BQH each other all the time, and we're like, man, my higher selves are so smart. Like, is that really a part of me? Because they got it going on.
Right. Well, the other thing I was thinking was, we actually had a session today, and the person was asking about, they do self BQH sessions on themselves a lot. And the advice that came back was, she was kind of like wearing herself out doing it, basically. And they were saying, do fewer questions so that you can start, but because they were describing that she's like digging a tunnel of an energy column up to that wisdom. And it's kind of a lot of energy to dig that tunnel sometimes.
Yeah.
But what we find is when we're just in the energy of the bubble, it just feels so good. It is like getting a Reiki session or getting an energy healing session. And what I would recommend to everyone is you just get trained and then you find your buddy and then you just BQH each other all the time.
Right.
That's
awesome.
what we always do.
Yeah, because now we're using...
You don't have to hang a shingle and take clients or do any of that. That's such a fascinating thing that you're saying, because, I was with Dolores and assisted Dolores for many, many years. And when we finally started to ask some questions, I started to ask when people took the training. We've started to follow up with them a year later. This was now Dolores's training. And what we found was very consistent over the years. And it was absolute shock to me, which is that whole time. So this is 2008 until her death in 2014, when I was kind of aware of some of this was going on. Do you know that only 10% went on to actually create a practice at all?
That's
so
awesome.
People were already doing this with Dolores. They were showing up. They loved her energy. They loved her books. They were taking classes. Some of them may have had no intention ever of becoming a practitioner. They simply wanted to understand, have an adventure, get close to what it is that she got close to when she was doing her sessions, and benefit from that. So that's exactly the way it would work if you took this course too.
Yeah. I think what BQH has helped too is for me to have an appreciation for my human experience. Like, why did I come here? Why did I incarnate in this body, in this time, in this place, knowing the people that I know? Because I think for me, it helps to place the responsibility and accountability back squarely on my shoulders, but from this place of empowerment and compassion. Like, you chose this and you're electing to have these experiences. So let's learn the lessons.
Yeah. Well, you guys, seriously, we BQH each other like 2 or 3 times a week. So whenever there's something weird happen, a weird dream, a weird, like an interaction where you're like, what was that? That was kind of strange. Or you get triggered by something, we go into the bubble and we ask about what we're supposed to be learning so that we can move through it.
We also ask a lot about the business. Yeah. If we feel it all stuck, or like maybe we've thought all the way through something, but we just want to double check and make sure that we're not missing a component, we'll go in and BQH about It's You Guru. Like, okay, so here's what the plan is. Are we is this right? Is this aligned? Are we missing anything?
Or it's really funny to watch the YouTube subscriber numbers climb and then stagnate. And we're like, it's completely stagnant for like 3 weeks. What is going on? So we try to figure out what it is we need to clear or change or do to get things climbing again.
Because it always ties back to the fact that energetically we've hit like a pivot point. Like, okay, now it's time to pivot. So we're going to stagnate everything until you think to ask us, okay, great. Now let's talk about it and let's realign and go. And it always shifts.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, you really have taken this idea of limitless in so many different ways, particularly your assisted sessions, and they're kind of compact and they're run a little differently. And I think that's astonishing. And I finally myself too, well, not that I hadn't done it already, but I've been doing something that I call a BQH mini session. And I had another one this morning. And what I've been doing is I'm keeping them under an hour, and I am not inducing a trance state. I am not having people close their eyes. They may kind of close their eyes a little bit while I'm asking them, but it is an absolute sitting up conscious
awesome.
Exploration. And I am finding some of the results astounding. And I'm really feeling this, and maybe you can let me know if you think this as well. I think these things are really kind of the time and of the moment. I think to try to do, I'm getting my confirmation buzzes. I think to try to do a bubble even 5 or 7 years ago, or some of these mini sessions, that brief, time before now may not have been quite as powerful as they are now. What do you guys think of that?
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. The energies are, so many people are talking about how easy it is to now instantly manifest and to really stay clear because we're creating. And I think that's why it's so easy to create the bubble now and to align with those energies of knowledge being, it's like it's just beyond being able to see to touch it. And so BQH just plugs us in a different way. Yeah. And we also felt too, which you might have been tapping into, that like, life is busy and stressful for a lot of people, but they're still seeking and searching and wanting to make their lives better. They're just struggling to find a way to fit it in with everything else they have going on. And that's why we were drawn to the write-ins, because we're like, look, we're busy too. So you just send us some questions. We'll work it into our schedule. We'll record it and we'll send you back the answer. And you don't have to put us on your calendar. You don't have to carve out the time. Like, you don't have to go anywhere. So yeah, we've been trying to streamline, allowing people to stay in their lane, and we stay in our lane, and then we use the consciousness to touch.
And we've got another idea. So when this video airs, it'll be a lot closer to it, but I'm not going to go into all the details, but let's just say we're calling it the Higher Self Boot Camp.
Ooh.
And we're going to be using BQH to help lots of people at a time.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Stay tuned in the vault.
I love that idea. Yeah, so I've got something kind of in the works too. I've been talking a little bit about how over the years, and even more recently coming forth and speaking with, we talked about the inner healer, the higher self. There's all these labels, but there's this idea of a kind of a group energy that shows up for much of the healing portions in a full-blown traditional quantum healing session. And so I've come to, Dolores used to call them they or them, and she used the term, the SC, and the SC stood for a lot of different things, but I've kind of settled upon this idea of a council of healers, which can be guides, it can be star brothers and sisters, it's typically a group of all of them. And I'm thinking about doing something too, which is helping people get in touch with their own individual council of healers. And what I have found is, what we're doing in sessions, whether they are the long drawn out, more traditional quantum healing exploration type with a trance, type environment, or even like your write-ins or the bubble or whatever, the council of healers are there participating, especially if there's if there's a client, it's like your council and their council comes together. And when you're working with each other as a team, there's 3 councils. And I also have found that these councils swap out too. So, some players come in at different times in their lives, and so that changes as well. And so that's another way of looking at the limitless potential of exploring consciousness in this way.
It's funny that you say that, because every time, whether we're doing a write-in or we're doing, what we call an office hour, where it's a 15-minute session, and we're calling the energy in advance, we see like the energy body or the energy signature of each individual, and then you see the energy of their team standing behind them every time. So that's awesome. I can't wait to see what you're creating next.
That's wonderful. We did together a project where we did a collaboration, and I think I love the idea of exploring that some more too. And some other people are more easily tapping into that. But the one thing that I want to mention is, because there's some conversation about that on our support forum right now where practitioners are talking about it, is how different it is when it's like a party of any kind, really, if you think about it. You can have a party of this group of people and this group of people and this group of people. But if you mix up the different groups, it's a different party every time. So I've done these tandem sessions, meaning when I've laid down and been a part of it as far as going into trance kind of way. And I've done it now maybe 4 times. And each time it's so incredibly different. And when I was connecting with Candy and Laura was facilitating the session, I'm still thinking so fondly about that and the experience that we had. And I here's my request. Can we do that again at some time? Maybe at the first part of summer or something, when we get through what is turning out to be kind of a crazy spring. I'm hoping things might settle down as we move into the summer months. But it's so fascinating who you connect with in that way, and even individually with a practitioner. So this idea that it used to be thought you only needed to ever do this one time. I don't know. That seems kind of limiting to me. How about you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know why you'd only want to do it once. It feels so amazing.
I know.
And the information that you get is so clear and so spot on. I mean,
it's a lot of pressure, I think, for people too. if it's like a lot of hours and a lot of money, then they're stressed about it. And I think the reason we had success with our friends and family is because they didn't know anything, they didn't pay for it, and they didn't really have any expectations.
Yeah, but since all of them have paid for sessions, like, because they had such a great experience, they're like, okay, so, can we do it again? Like, I'm stuck. That's what we hear a lot is, I'm not sure what decision to make, or I'm feeling stuck. Can I either, schedule a short session or send you, 5 questions? And we're like, of course, always. That's what we're here for.
I love it.
And yes, we would love to do a tandem session with you again, Candace, anytime.
Yeah, beginning of summer sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let me ask, don't let me put you on the spot, but would it be the same thing again? Would it be the Candy and Candace thing?
I was just thinking about that. We've been flipping coins sometimes to go it depends on what the technology is, but we could switch it.
I love that idea. It was just so fascinating. It was so different than the other ones that I'd had before.
We've also been playing with the more conscious connection too, of like, maybe we all 3 could go in. What we play with is tossing, one person will toss the question out and then the other person responds. So we're like kind of questioning why we're both still in the bubble, and it's working. Mm-hmm. So
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could play with it.
Yeah.
You just have to peek at your
We're going to take that bent rule and we're going to bend it even more.
I love it. This is making me wonder if you were the kind of high school rebel girl like I was.
No. I followed all the rules, Candace. All the rules.
Just got tired of it.
Yeah.
I was the quiet rebel. On the outside, I was doing everything right, and then kind of, when I had my chance, I would definitely bust out of the containment system, shall we say? But it's fun to do it in the big wide world to help people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there really are no rules when it comes to this kind of stuff. And, a couple of the things that are going on out there that some others are doing, this no limits, there's some people now who aren't even using the video interface. They're just getting on the telephone. Mm-hmm. And, hypnosis has been done via telephone for decades. So there's nothing new about that. But this kind of expanded hypnosis, I think that probably, doing this and singing light language or something over the phone might be a little bit new in our field, at least this way. But I can't wait to see what the next year brings as far as other people expanding this and doing it really in ways that we don't or haven't thought of. Creating artwork together. Mm-hmm. In creative things, creating music together, holding somebody else in a bubble for an assisted session, or, I have to say, and again, we're pre-recording this for Worldwide Regression Week, so we're in the month of March as we're doing this. But the latest person who purchased the BQH course, and it just came in, was from China.
And I got chills.
Right? I know. You've got to imagine, and again, when this airs, we have no idea what may have changed since then, so we're only just thinking about it. But the world really is waking up and looking to different possibilities about what actually is going on out there and what we're told, and how, and this is my favorite part, how creative and how powerful we can be to manage the situations we find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's so fantastic. I love it. So, it just feels like the power of the consciousness is so much closer now. And it's so much easier to tap into and to affect change as an individual. I think we're right there.
I had something come through a session the other day, and it was a little bit like, we are right at the point where, basically, how much more do you want to take is what's happening. How much more do you people out there want to take before you finally step up and just say, that's it, enough's enough. And that's kind of where we are right now. And it is very chaotic. But I don't know. You guys tell me if you're feeling this way. Again, we're doing this in March of 2020. So who knows what we'll be talking about in the coming months. But right now I can see the chaos. I can see denial of the chaos. I can also see this though, or feel this, I should say. I feel the biggest sense of elation that you can imagine. It's just right here. And it's just
Oh yeah.
this.
Yep.
But it's still down here. And the chaos kind of has to happen. It's like a volcano or something that might erupt or whatever. And sort of the big eruption still hasn't happened. The chaos of getting ready to erupt is there. At least that's what it feels like to me. How about to you guys?
Yeah, I feel, and I don't know, so I don't know if we're describing the same thing, but it started happening probably in the beginning of the year, where I would get like this crazy rush of excitement, like tomorrow's Christmas or my birthday, or I'm leaving for a big vacation. And I would start running through this list in my mind of like, what am I doing tomorrow? What is driving this? And I couldn't land on anything in the physical, but I was so freaking excited, and it comes and it goes. And we've had a lot of people in our group, in the Vibe Tribe, say the same thing. Like, what is all this excitement energy? It's like this anticipation, excitement. So it feels high vibe, but it does feel like something big is going to shift or break free.
If you're not used to like feeling happy and joyful, I think it might trigger anxiety in some people.
Yeah. We did talk about that in one of our videos, how, because you're running through a checklist. The last time my heart was racing like this was right before I had a panic attack.
Or right after I quit a job or something.
Yeah.
Can I tell you another way that we're breaking the mold?
Okay. Yes, please.
I was just walking my fingers down Candy's leg, trying to give her a signal. We are taking a trip of people to Spain to walk the Camino this fall.
Oh, I know this too. And I'm going to send a part of my spirit with you because there's no way I can manage being the caretaker that I am right now to leave.
Yeah.
Oh, I yearn to go do that someday.
Well, hopefully it's just the first of many.
Right. That's the idea.
Yeah, but it really is the first time that I realized I was talking to my higher self. Because, you're just out there walking, and we walk a lesser known route. So there's not as many people, and you really do have a lot of solitary, a lot of time to just go in. And I specifically had this thought about, I was remembering how I like to lead and how, I've always enjoyed working with people. And, I was thinking like, yeah, I need to start doing that again. Like, I don't know what happened or how I got away from that. And just as I had that thought, like I sent it out, like I need to start doing that more. The leader of our tour, Manny, who we're going to be with this fall too, said, Candy, I need you to take point. And I need you to lead everybody because we've got some people that we're getting too far spread out. The trail's not that easily marked here. So I'm going to go back to the back. So you need to keep a close eye because it in a few areas you can't quite see the trail. And I thought, oh my God, it just happened. Right now I'm in the lead. And I was like, you got it. I mean, I was so excited. So then I realized like, oh my God, this is a two-way communication. And I can feel the real-time effect of having this connection. But I didn't still know what it was when I came back until I did the BQH training. And the first time we went in the bubble, I was like, oh my God, like I've been here before. And it took a while for me to realize that's what was happening when I was on the Camino in 2018.
So we want to help people on the trip get that practice in and that ability to kind of, we're calling it jacking in. So you need to jack in.
Well, it came from our tandem session. That was the visual that I got in our tandem was how really what we're working toward is just the ability to, as you need to, jack in, connect to your higher selves, get the info, and then like pull it down and continue. So it becomes this integrated part of how you're existing.
And yeah, and for me, BQH has been the like easiest way and the best way to train yourself. So it's really training to train yourself. And so we're going to incorporate some practices and some things that people can do on the trip so that they can start practicing when you're, I mean, first of all, you're outside, so you're not being bombarded by a ton of Wi-Fi and stuff like that. And we're going to let people decide if they want to walk alone or not. And so you'll have that time and the practice to be able to start working on that.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about something because I'm going to throw it back to earlier in the show when we were talking. A lot of practitioners do come to BQH after taking many, many courses. I'm one of them. And it kind of, puts it all together. But it also, it very much does start from the ground up for people who haven't done this kind of work before, because it talks about some energy basics that just a lot of these healing courses don't even touch. They're either
Right.
assumed or they don't want to talk about it, or they think it's a different subject. But I think it's all, of course, absolutely combined. But something that you just said about the training in the course makes me think of something. So we've been trained to be removed from these things that are so innate to us. These are things that kids do automatically, but that things like school and religious training and parental units and jobs and cubicle positions and all these things about just, continue and don't be creative and don't think out of the box and don't imagine stuff and don't, so really what it is, and we say this in the spiritual community all the time, remember who you are. And some people are like, well, what the heck does that even mean? But some of this is remember about the childlike wonder, creativity, possibility, freedom, all these things that at some point, most children, when if they're not having to deal with other big issues, which I know some kids do, but that exuberance of childhood, that connection to this innate creativity, expansion, exploration of being a kid is kind of, so it's like you're remembering this, you're being minded that this is very innate to us as humans, and you've just been told not to access any of that from the time you're very small.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, looking back on my corporate career now, I can remember just knowing things in my gut. Like I just knew decisions that needed to be made, but then being questioned, like, well, how do you know that? And can you point to where you got that information? And be like, no, like it came from my tummy. Like I just know. And I eventually just like ignored it. And I would like make notes to myself of this isn't going to work because of X, Y, Z. And, a lot of times I ended up being right, but nobody knew because it wasn't an environment where that type of access to information is supported yet. I think that's changing yet.
You're right. Hey, that reminds me of something else and how my mini session ended up this morning, which was, have you guys had a lot of sessions? Because I know that we don't often talk about this part, but one of the things that my session this morning, my mini session with my client, it just confirmed to her that she actually was hearing her higher self. And she was so questioning this over and over and over again. And I think, again, that's because of belief systems, right? And the things that you said. And she was like, well, I couldn't tell if that was my higher self or my ego. And I said, well, let's really think about this then. These are the things that sound like ego, and these are the things that sound like your higher self. So what was actually happening is she was getting a lot of confirmation from this session that she actually was connected. Do you have some good confirmation kinds of sessions these days yourself?
All the time. I love the one. So my mom, we did an assist on behalf of my mom. And I was in the bubble. And so she was asking the questions and Laura was facilitating. And afterward, I called her and I asked her, so, what did you think? And she's like, and she was pausing and kind of thinking about what she wanted to say. I was like, do you want to know if I could see any of the other stuff that was in your head? And she's like, yeah. I was like, no, I could only access the information to the answers to your questions. Because she said that I was using the exact phrasing that had been that she had been rolling around in her head. It's like you were saying the exact thing that I had been thinking and I hadn't told anyone. So then she got all paranoid that I could read all her thoughts and know all of her secrets. I was like, no, Mom, your closet's safe. I didn't go snooping around. You're good.
Broken into the file cabinet. You can get it anytime you want. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Like that. But these are valid concerns for people who don't understand consciousness exploration. So I guess as far as rules go, there are some universal rules, right? So when we talk about being rule breakers, we're talking about kind of human construct, maybe, or human things like that. But the universal rules and the spiritual rules of
ethical rules.
Highest good.
Those rules, you almost can't break them if you tried.
I mean, if you want to and you want that karma,
I was going to say, neither one of us wants anyone else's karma or to create any more for ourselves. So we're keeping it on a high path when it comes from an integrity perspective.
Right. And people have asked, actually, that was a question in our group this week. Wait, you can ask about someone else in these sessions. And the answer I had was, of course, you can ask. That doesn't mean you're going to get the information.
Yeah.
And you want to be like, why are you asking? I mean, is it to help your relationship flourish? Then you're probably going to get some information that will help your relationship flourish, or you'll get the person's perspective, because it's important for all of us to see different perspectives. But you're not going to get like a gossip situation or like a personal secret that nobody wanted you to know.
Yeah, no, it's, there's so much integrity that comes, I think, even if you get outside of the practitioner, if there's so much integrity that comes in communicating with the higher selves, like they're holding a level of integrity themselves as well. Because we'll often have, like we've gotten to the point now where we both can kind of feel the information come in, and sometimes it'll come in and just sit there. And I can't say it. And I'll be like, well, there's information, but the person didn't ask.
She doesn't really know what it is.
Right. I don't know what it is. I can just feel the weight of it. I'm like, I think they need to re-ask their question, because they didn't really ask what they really wanted to know. Because the higher self knows what's on the, you know what's on your heart is your higher self. And so like they're sending the information, they're pressing on me to just say, ask the question you really want to know the answer to. And then when they ask it, then the information can come out. But I don't have access to it unless the question's asked.
Wow. I can't believe what you've just thrown me back personally to, which is my session with Dolores Cannon. And that happened in a group, right? So there was a group watching, and there were some questions that she was asking that my higher self was very coy and about answering. And it was because there were people in the room, because it was a demo session. There was some real, and I'm still, I had this session in July 13th of 2008. And I'm telling you that I still get information about what happened then. It's like, well, it means this, and then it means this, and then it means this, and then it means this. And I am still benefiting from that, and it is still inspiring me to continue to move on. And maybe not all sessions are like that. It's certainly that very first one with Dolores was so powerful. It continues to inform me. But I bet you've been at it long enough that people have come back to you after having sessions and then saying, I thought this, but now since this has happened or this much time has passed, what it really meant or how it really played out was this way. What are some stories that you've had come back from clients in that regard?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Well, I know what you're thinking. I know one in particular was with a gentleman who he sent us questions via write-in. So we did the session, we sent him back the answers. And in a write-in, there's no exchange. I mean, when you're having the client either on the phone or on the internet or even with you, you can sometimes hear the like you can get a little bit of verbal feedback. And so with the write-ins, like we're flying blind, and stuff's coming in. On one hand, I love it because I don't have to worry or even wonder. My logical mind doesn't have to wonder, is this right? In a write-in, you're just like, here's what I'm getting. I have no idea if this makes any sense to you at all. And so this guy had actually asked some questions about his father, himself, and his son. And so we gave him the session, and he sent back and said that his energy had shifted so much just listening to the audio, that he had an interaction with his father. And I'm getting chills now. Oh, I might get emotional. That was completely different than an interaction he had with his dad, and he couldn't remember how long. And it also had shifted the relationship immediately with his son, just from listening to the audio of his higher selves communicating with him. It completely changed his life. And so when people send us that kind of stuff back, because we always say, if this resonated, we'd love to hear.
This is right.
And people have been so gracious and emailing us back and telling us how the audio recording that they got has shifted something major in their life.
Well, and to me, what this whole process is the person being willing to ask and kind of being vulnerable enough to open themselves up to this energy. And a lot of times what we get when we connect in with someone's higher selves, write in, assist, whatever kind of session it is, the higher selves are freaking pumped.
Yeah.
For someone to be like communicating directly, because they always consistently say, we are talking to this person all the time. I mean, they say that all the time, but it's just so confusing about what's the signal, what's not the signal, and how's it working. But it's like that energy of that man opening up to ask those questions and then receiving that energy from his higher selves and the perspective shift that they always give that just kind of kicks off this major life change for people a lot of times.
The amount of healing that people get from these kinds of sessions, it's, Laura and I are both Reiki masters, and I've had some really interesting Reiki sessions with clients, but this is so profound and so life-shifting and so immediate. Mm-hmm. And almost every time, like, I don't think we've had a client who's been like, yeah, that was nice. Like, they're all just like, okay, I had at least one wow moment in that.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the recording is really important too, because Candace, I don't know if you had that session recorded and you're able to listen to it now, but being able to go back, like you said, and listen to it over and over again, because it's almost like you can only hear what you're ready to hear. And so in a couple weeks or in a couple months, you're going to be able to hear a different layer of it.
Yeah. It's like your session with Dolores. Like, you just, as your vibration shifts, it's like tuning a dial on a radio. As you tune those dials, you're going to get more depth to the music that you're listening to.
Yeah, it was where I've listened to it enough and pondered this enough over the years. Believe me, my own session with Dolores right now, the places that are the most rich with information are the pauses and the very carefully worded answers that are trying to say something without saying something. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to me, because at the time I'm like, well, what even was that, right? And I still kind of don't know, but I'm getting warmer
right
on some of that. Okay, here's another question I've got for you. You guys really inspire me to ask some deep questions. But so I had a client recently who had a repeat session from one 7 years ago. And in that session 7 years ago, one of his questions was, I don't know about my job. I'm thinking about starting this business and quitting my job, and should I do that or not? And he had a great job and he didn't know, and it was, I'm sure you've had sessions like that before. Mm-hmm. So I think this is such an important story if you really just look at it again from the big perspective, right? And the higher self said, yeah, you absolutely should quit your job and start this business. And so that's what this fella did. So he did that. He sunk a fortune into this business. And before 1 year was out, he lost everything. Like everything. And it was huge. Really huge. And this happened then, of course, 6 years ago or whatever. Well, I hadn't talked to him for a number of years. But when he came back to me and talked to me now, he said, so you would think that it was awful and it was a failure and whatever. And he said, and it was very difficult. He said, but the thing that happened during that dark night of the soul, and then I won't really share it, what he said, but it was so profound. And it was something that he'd been praying for, wanting, desiring with all of his heart. It couldn't enter until this other big happened, right? So, just think about it. If even a year later, I picked up the phone and said, hey, how's that? How's it going? Did you start to, he might have been at that low moment and have wanted to not say very maybe nice things to me or whatever. But in the end, coming back out of it, he saw the gifts, and he saw how the gifts couldn't have shown up without that big thing that happened. So have you guys have any stories like that yet? And if you don't, you will.
Well, nothing that profound, but we call those slingshot moments where you get pulled back so far and then boom, you're just shot so far forward, and you couldn't have gotten there without going backwards. That was our 2018. So we've personally had that experience. But I don't know that we haven't been at it as long as you have, Candace. So, we've only been here in this space a little over a year. So I'm sure we'll probably have some stories like that.
Here's one of the things I want to do with you guys. on air, off air at some point. I want to go down these terms. I mean, even today we've got jacked in and we've got slingshot moment and we've got, the bubble. I mean, you are, you are so good at these encapsulating these things. It's brilliant. I love it.
I think I don't know what it is. It's like, it's like shortening. How can we talk about it quickly?
Yeah. It's all based on personal experience, and we're both highly visual people, and our higher selves often tend to communicate very visually when we're in session. So, I mean, the whole jacked thing was because I literally saw someone go they pointed in the session, they pointed and they go, you. I was like, oh, jack in. Okay, I got it. A headset. I actually saw the end of a headset. Okay.
Wow. Okay. So are emojis next?
Maybe.
I love it. Well, this has been so much fun. I've enjoyed myself thoroughly talking with you ladies today.
Well, thanks for chatting with us.
Yeah,
happy Worldwide Regression Week, everybody.
Absolutely. Totally. We love catching up with you, and we love all of the things that you're offering and how limitless you truly have made this modality.
You're welcome to join our community at quantumhealers.com. You don't have to practice BQH. You can be a Reiki master or anything. We have a large, wonderful, diverse, worldwide community of healers, and we share ideas, concepts without limit and without censorship. All you have to do is be nice.
Everybody's really nice.
Yeah, everyone is really nice.
It's basically the requirement. And if you're not nice, and there have been very few over the years, very, very few. If you're not nice, we may have to show you the door, but it has not happened. You'd be surprised. Very, very few over the years. Almost everyone is quite wonderful. And we'd love to have more healers of all different kinds, because, that's one of the cool things about BQH is tell me about this. Some people incorporate tapping. Some people bring in sound healing. We love learning about all of this stuff. And most of us like to learn from other communities, other teachers, and take other courses. And so it all works together in our community as a whole, and of course, especially in BQH. Thank you, ladies. You all are my BQH superstars.
Oh, thank you.
Love you, Candace.
Yeah, and you guys can find us over at it'syoguru.com. Let's see.
Yeah.
Wait, don't end.
Don't end. We'll just want to stop recording.